Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I have the pleasure of having on Cobb Backer of TC Backer Construction, amongst other companies. So do you want to say what those other companies are real quick?
Yeah, we can do that. Obviously, we have TC Backer, which is a roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar company. And then we have Horizon Lawns, which we do a lot of commercial uh, projects there, sod landscaping, hardscaping, overseeding, hydro seeding, all kinds of things like that for residential and commercial projects. We have a real estate side of things where we buy, sell, hold, flip properties. And then I have what's called the Rocket Group, named that after my son, or not our youngest, yeah, our youngest son, Rocket John. And that is like a holdings company where we run like the building that we're in right now. I bought it in the name of Rocket Group, lease it to TC Backer Construction for, income for the Rocket Group each month. So
Sweet.
right now, oh, and I am the co-founder of Lead Scout app, which I don't
Amazing.
put that out there either. Trying to think of anything else. I used to own a motorcycle shop, but I sold that a couple years ago. And
Did I give a 2 minute breakdown of, I know it's a lot to stuff in 2 minutes, but just to give an overview for people, where'd you come from?
hmm,
And then how'd you get here? Like just a short 2 minute version of like the timeline.
the timeline. Um, okay. So we're a first generation roofing company. That's kind of been the vehicle for everything else that we're involved with right now. So I come from a long line of carpenters. My grandfather, my uncles, my father, but by trade, my father is not a carpenter. He's an engineer. So I've always had the background of this stuff here. I grew up in a bar room. I attended bar, catering, grew up in the restaurant business, hospitality, and on the weekends, my dad in evenings had us building stuff, catering, kitchen, the actual bar, apartments, things like that. He did that kind of on the side. He never stopped. So got in some trouble when I was younger, moved to York County, got involved with my brother-in-law and his best friend in a siding business. Worked for him for several years at a young age. I think from like when I was 23 to probably 30-ish, and then left him and started TC Backer Construction and never really looked back. And that's the 2 minute sugar coated version of kind of how we got here.
Why did you decide? Because you guys are on the bigger side, and we won't go into numbers or anything like that. But like for a lot of construction roofing companies in particular, but
Mhm.
when did you decide that you wanted to go bigger?
It's funny you say that, because when I worked for my brother-in-law, our dream at that time was to be like the largest siding, company in the area. And over time, I think his dream changed, and my dream was still to be, a pretty sizable, roofing and siding company. Back then, we did siding predominantly, and so we parted ways. And when we parted ways, I was pretty frustrated with the way that we parted ways. And Patrick Bet Davis just came out with a book. Can't quite remember the name of it, but
Choose your enemies wisely.
yeah,
Choose
choose
your
your enemies
enemies.
wisely. So how TC Backer
Just
Construction
try
got built was out of a resentment.
yeah.
So for several years, I was filled with piss and vinegar that, I helped him build, an empire, and I'm going to leave here and I'm going to build a dynasty, right? And that was my exact words. I said, I'm gonna try to squash him, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this and get pissed off. But whatever, he's still doing his thing. I'm still doing my thing. He's still at the size he was. I'm sure he's very profitable. He's taking care of my sister and my nephew and those people there. And that's really all I can pray for, that they're doing well. And I know they are. And then that almost killed me, right? living that way and having that being the driving force, because not that I was doing things wrong, and not doing it the right way, but the stress that it was putting on me physically. And,
Mhm.
I'd work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and did that for several years, which I really feel like we wouldn't be where we're at today if I wouldn't have put in that type of work ethic into what it was that we were doing. And
Just
we
to
did.
just to give people a synopsis of that new Patrick Bet David book, it's talking about choosing your enemies wisely. It's talking about how you need an emotional element to charge up your goals, and having a good enemy sometimes it does that. It's just I always try to understand, is it toxic fuel? Like, and that's what I try to understand, because also
Yeah.
you and I are not to out you, but we're both in recovery, I think. Like I certainly like am trying to watch how many resentments that I live with on a regular basis. And I do have them, and they are pretty useful fuel sometimes,
Yeah.
though, which is it's confusing because it does drive you. So it's kind of hard to like not enjoy that a little bit, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's why I was saying it, it almost killed me. It really did. And I remember my mom had lived with us at that time back in those days, and she had passed. This February will be 9 years. So I'm trying to think back. So that would have been probably 10, 11, 12 years ago. We were sitting at dinner one night. It was about 7:30 in the evening, and I took her out. And at that moment, at that time in my life, that season of my life, I was maxed out. I was stressed. I had been just beaten up and felt guilty because I wasn't spending enough time with my mom. Janet was taking care of my mom
How
during
old
the
were you
day.
at
At
this
night.
point, by the way? How old were you about
What was
this?
I? I would have been 30, 35, 37-ish
Okay.
at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I'm 47 now.
Good.
So I'm killing myself, right? And feeling guilty. And it was about 7:30 at night because everything came through this. And I mean everything, emails, text messages, service calls. I mean, everything, leads, all of it came through my cell phone at that moment. And 7:30 at night, phone rang, and I red buttoned it probably for the first time in my life. I was like, man, I just can't handle it. I need to be present. And my mom looked at me and she said two things that aren't very mind blowing, and we've all heard them, but at that moment it just hit differently. And she was like, Ty, life is too short, right? And we've all heard that, but it never really meant anything until you're sitting there across the table from your dying mother, right?
Hmm.
It just hit differently at that moment. And then the second thing she said to me, it's giving me goosebumps right now. She said, you need help. And her being an entrepreneur, and I watched the bar restaurant industry basically kill her because they were open 365 days a year. This year was their 41st year of being opened on Christmas morning. So my dad now has retired and semi-retired, I should say, and manages the bar and the restaurant full time now. Retired from his mechanical engineer job, and now does that. Has been doing that for quite some time now since she's passed. And even before that, she moved in with us. So she was with us for 4 years. So he did that for has been doing that for a long time. But when she said those two things to me, I went on a mission to find help. I knew at that moment that I needed to surround myself around good people, people that I could trust first and foremost. I didn't really care what their skill set was or what level of education that they had. I just knew that I was mediocre at everything that I did. I was wearing 15 hats, right? That at one point created 12 full-time jobs, literally, as I went on a mission. And don't get me wrong, Jana was there, Perry was there, Kim was there. We had people, right, in place, but I was teaching them how to think, and not necessarily what to think on their own. You know what I mean? Like they were all kind of sitting around waiting for me to tell them what to do. Like they weren't making decisions and command decisions on their own. They were all kind of just not sitting around, but you know what I mean? Like they were waiting for me to point them in the right direction or give them their daily task and stuff like that. And I had learned a hard lesson on leadership, what true leadership is, and to surround yourself around people that are smarter than you in areas that I may not be so strong in or don't have time for, or not educated in. So I went on a mission. I started to find people, and it didn't happen overnight. And we're still looking for good people. And before we got on this podcast, we were talking about some things, Tim, and what we need to do is find people who complement us in areas of our life. And John Stauffer is a great example of that, and many other people, Glenn and Chris Baker and Mike Ippy and Vic and all those guys all complement what we do very well because they have their strengths in what they do on lockdown, like on marketing, sales, Glenn, production management, Vic, AV, Mike Ippy, IT. Like those are their
Yeah,
guys.
because I was going to ask you, how do you not burn out? It sounds like we're like, that's kind of what this is. You have to get other people that you can trust to, one, make decisions, think separately from you, and make real decisions. And then like people that are really good at other stuff that you're not good at. Certainly, it is weird how running a business forces you to do so many different things. Like, do not start your own business if you're not willing to do a bunch of shit poorly, because it requires you to do so many things that you cannot be good at all of them. There's just don't start a business, because like as a craftsman, let's say like if you were back in the day doing siding yourself, you can get so good at it that like, man, no one can mess with you. You're just that good at siding. And when I used to make websites myself, all the little details of it, like I was very proud of the way I did it personally. And then there's just been, when we've been growing, right? We've been growing, you've been growing. There's just moments where you have to let go, and it's not going to be perfect, but you have to figure out how to make it pretty good and let go, because you're never going to grow if you can't let go of some of it. Any other lesson? I mean, obviously that was an emotional moment with your mom. Is there anything else that like was like a important letting go moment that you could share with us?
An important letting go moment. Well, the biggest part in that is the moment I started to let go, we started to explode. Because I'm screaming from the rooftops, go, 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 grow, grow, grow. And I'm, doing this, not even realizing I got three fingers pointing back at me that I was the issue. I was the issue. I was the bottleneck. And what the problem was the 6 inches between my ears, saying foolish things to myself like, no one can do it as well as I can do it. Or I don't have time for them to figure out how to do it. And all these stupid things that I would say to myself, when at that moment I was totally burnt out. I was mediocre at everything that I did. I could not excel. And the quality of my personal life and my professional life was suffering very badly. So I think the improvement of my personal life was drastic. It improved incredibly. And then, of course, I was probably much easier to be around at work as well, because I wasn't so stressed out because I was high strung. I'm still high strung. And I was able to actually start working on the business and making it fun, not just for me, but making it fun for other people. And I typically manage things or run things very personally, right? So you had asked me a question before we went live, and it's like, well, how did you get as big as you are today? And I still look at things like we're still just getting started, and I think that's one way of, and I feel that because of all the new things, new technologies, the new areas, the new locations, new team members that come on. The team, they keep it fresh, they keep it real for me. But when somebody comes to work here, they're our responsibility now, not just them, but their wife, their kids, their families are now our responsibility. So what am I going to do? How are we going to stay busy enough? Because we're, most people think we're a seasonal business, but we tend to slow down over the winter months. There's recessions, there's economic concerns, there's interest rates, there's inflations, there's all of these things things that play into, what can affect what I call the TC Backer economy, because I feel like our economy is different than the global economy. We can get into that topic later.
Hey guys, this is Bruce by Don, and when dealing with insurance companies, you definitely need an expert by your side. So if you need someone to walk in, hold your hands throughout the insurance process, not really, Max. Deal with the experts, supplement experts.
You can hold my hand.
No, I love that. I love talking about that because I think like we all make our own economy, man. I'm planning on growth. I think that honestly,
for sure.
Ty, I think in this next 6 months, I hope, honestly, I kind of hope, not in a negative way towards other businesses, but I kind of hope we're going to scrape a bottom. I think I've been saying this. I think that we're in a spot where the recession has been worse than we'll acknowledge because there's been such rampant inflation, and the inflation has been covering up the massive recession that we're already currently in. And I think that we'll hopefully feel some realness to the recession in the next like some more like crunchy negative stuff. But then once we really feel it, once we really have it, once it's hitting us in the head, then we have an opportunity, hopefully, to actually come out of it. That's what I'm kind of hoping. And I hope by the end of the year, we're actually coming out of it and we're on the way up. That's really what I'm hoping right now. But in my business, I'm going to grow my business because
for sure.
My business is, I believe, because we take such massive action and we deploy resources boldly and with risk to ourselves. What is entrepreneurship but just continuing to risk it, right? We just can keep on doubling down, man, on ourselves and on like the people around us that we've hired that we believe in.
For sure.
And so I would like to grow, even though I do believe that we're going to experience a little harsher recession for a little bit here.
Yeah,
I believe.
Well, I feel like this is a great topic, and some people might think I'm crazy or whatever, but I feel like there's two economies. Okay. There's our economy, and then there's like the global economy. And I feel like TC Backer has went through their recession already. And let me explain to you my theory behind this is because back in 2019, I feel like that's when our recession began, and that's when I started to prepare for it. And I've been talking about recession probably a little too prematurely, but I think it's worked out to our benefit. And the reason why I say that is because 2020 hit, the first quarter of 2020, we hit a pandemic. We were affected by a pandemic. The state of Pennsylvania was closed down for the entire first quarter. Okay, so things went like this, whether it was, housing, people were buying stuff, the government was giving money out, and that's where the mirage began. That's where the recession began, whether people know it or not, and I call it a mirage. But what we were experiencing was a shortage of materials, inflation on materials, which everyone else is feeling now, inflation, and shortage of labor, right? So we'd have to pay people $80 an hour to just show up on the job. We were paying twice the amount for shingles if we could get them, and if we couldn't get them, we'd go across the street and get them where we didn't necessarily have an account. So we've gone through all those things. We were going through those things 2020, 2021, 2022. So what we had experienced, I would say in the beginning, probably the first to the second quarter of 2022 was our correction, because there's always a correction after recession. So we started to feel this correction where the housing market started to slow down, the government stopped giving money out, so things started to correct themselves, at least for TC Backer, where those shitheads that wanted to only come on a job site if they're getting paid $80 an hour, we started thinning those guys out. Supply and demand started to slow a little bit as far as the demand, and then supply started to catch up. So materials became more readily available for us. And meanwhile, like you had mentioned, we continued to keep doubling down on our marketing efforts since 2018, double down, 19,
May I
double
ask you
down.
how much percentage you spend on marketing?
That's a great question. And I can get to that in a little bit. So during a recession isn't necessarily when somebody makes money. It's always on the backside of a recession when you start to make money. So as the global economy tanks, we're going to be in a financial position better off than I think most businesses in general. I don't want to just categorize the roofing industry, but most businesses, because everybody got caught up in the hubbub of everybody spending money. Everybody's got money. Well, if you spend all your money during those times, you haven't seen anything yet, because it's only going to probably get worse. And if it doesn't, great, but be prepared for it to be bad. So on the back, I feel like we're on the back side of it. We went through our correction year, and I hear you say all the time, double down, double down, double down. Yes, on some things, marketing's always one that you should double down on. On other things, maybe not necessarily, because there are times that you want to remain cash flush, right?
Well,
Not cash.
dude, like honestly, this is why I do like hearing real numbers sometimes, and that's why I was trying to ask you. But I won't do it. I won't do it. But like for instance, with a big company, with a large company,
Mhm.
I think you
Yeah.
can spend like I suggest all the time. Roofers spend 5% of marketing. If I was past $20,000 though, I would consider ramping that back, right? Percentage wise, like can we make it 2? Can we make it 3? Because and ultimately I would be pushing stuff like we're lead gen, right? Hook's lead gen. But if I was
Mhm.
past that, I would really start moving my balance over. And I'm sure you're doing this, but like I've moved my balance over to brand as much as possible, getting TC Backer out there to the world, the brand versus the hardcore lead gen, because to me, all the deals are in brand because
Mhm.
people all want quick fixes. So you can go sponsor this, sponsor that, sponsor this, sponsor that. And it's like free and open space because people aren't like, well, I'm going to get how many leads from this sponsorship of an event? It's like, okay, most people think that way. So if you can think the other way, you can make more, like basically like the longer term, slower, harder stuff versus the like, I need to spend
Mhm.
1-to-1. Every lead needs to be $300, versus the other thing. Not to say you should always do a mixture of both, in my opinion. But like the larger companies can spend a lower percentage and focus on brand. That's my mindset because ultimately you get better deals for the longer term stuff. So
Mhm.
that's everyone wants the quick fixes, so those are expensive.
Yeah. No, brand is very important. I mean, brand is for longevity, right? If you want to be in the game for a long time, doesn't matter what industry you're in, you need to brand your stuff. And in roofing, he who gets the most touch points usually wins, right? Like you want people searching TC Backer, not roofer near me. And if you
Yeah.
can brand yourself enough where you have 10,000 visitors visiting your website a month, TC Backer, searching TC Backer, ultimately at the end of the day, that's what matters most, right? And where the marketing comes in is to rank you on the first page and things like that. So and I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between marketing and branding. And branding is, it starts with your team, right? Your team is a big part of your brand. When they're out there screaming from the rooftops, this is a great place to work, or hey, we do roofing and stuff. That they're the face of your company in your local areas and stuff. And like you said, being able to sponsor somebody, that's where like it's really hard to track the matrix or your ROI on that, but you can't get caught up in that, because I've done that before. Like how many
Yeah.
times
I
somebody
think that,
called us from that one billboard, it doesn't really matter, because I couldn't tell you how many touch points, how many people drove past that billboard, how many
yeah.
times that day, how many times throughout the week, the month, the year that they've seen it. But what you're trying, when they think of roofing or siding or gutter needs, you want them to think of you.
Yeah. I think like that's why people get confused because it's like, okay, well, yeah, you wouldn't do that if you're sub 2 million, right? Or like even, it might be hard for people to swing it because you kind of got to be able to, like, even under 5, right? Because you kind of got to be able to push some money in and not expect return immediately for certain things. Like, that's a hard thing to do when you're a small business. So that's why it's like when you're mature, that's when you get to do, that's when you want to just start divvying out 20-30% of your marketing budget for brand. You just start with 20 or 30%, and then you can slowly move it up as you get bigger because you see how much you're growing. Like, it's really kind of like, at the end of the day, like, I get it, like, we love digital, right? Because we know exactly what, Facebook ad, click, lead, how much do we spend, et cetera, et cetera. Google ad, lead, how much do we spend? What's our closing rate? It's like, I get it. We all love that stuff. We all wish it was that perfect. But when it's not that, like, when brand is out there, one, we see all those leads, the cost per lead go down, down, down. We see companies growing from doing branding. So it's like, ultimately, who's really growing in the area? And there's people that are doing this and they're growing. And so it's a soft science. It's not like I'm on the scientific side of marketing. I'm on the click and how much does it cost and whatnot. But I still believe, like, if you do it in a soft science, you're going to get better results. Like, that's why I think, are you a spreadsheets guy? I'm sure you're good with money now, but, like, are you naturally like a accountant brain?
Yeah, I think so. I
Oh,
think,
okay. Well, I am not. So I, like, ultimately, like,
yeah.
I
Well,
leverage
I
my,
mean, it's not hard.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to, keep track of money and find out what an ROI is or a profit and loss statement. I mean, it's not, you, when you get into more elaborate accounting software, no, am I a QuickBooks expert? No, I am not. Not sure exactly why that happened, but let me see if I can't get that to go away.
Let's pause for a moment on content and we'll get this.
There we go.
There we go.
So, okay, a couple of things. When you're early on in business, looking back, if I reverse engineer this here a little bit, the biggest thing that you need to focus on, yes, you need to brand yourself, yes, you need to market yourself, and budgets are small. The hard thing is figuring out where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck, right? Where am I going to spend my $5,000 budget, right? That's going to give us the biggest bang. Yard signs and truck wraps right out of the gate as far as branding goes. That's the first thing you need to do. Have a yard sign that pops. I mean, our yard signs are unique. There are things that you can do. You can pass out flyers, you can do door hangers, business cards, but more importantly, what you need to focus on is networking, building partnerships, and relationships. There are people that I've partnered up with and have relationships with from day one. Eric Brewer, Integrity First Home Buyers. He's an investor here locally. We do over 300 projects a year for him in our local area. I still do work for him today. And then because of his network of people that have mushroomed, other real estate offices, other investors across the country that we've created relationships with because of his network. And that's why, if anyone ever says your net worth is your network, financially, or professionally, and personally, like, you would be in my network. So you are a part of my net worth because I am the sum of those 5 that I surround myself with. But on a professional level, my net worth contributes a lot to my network of those that I've surrounded myself with and chose to do business with today, no matter what the economic climate is. Eric's going to buy, sell, flip houses. Doesn't matter if it's 8% interest rates or if it's at 2% interest rates. The higher the interest rates, the more houses that come on the market, the more foreclosures, the better off he's going to do. During a good housing market, he's going to buy as many as he can and sell them with maybe a little lesser margin, but whatever the case might be. But because of my network of people, my brand has gotten out there a lot further. Our reputation of who we do work for and how good work that we do, then our network becomes our brand because they're the ones screaming from the rooftops. Eric Brewer's like, in all these Facebook groups, someone's looking for windows. Eric and his entire team is like TC Backer, free roof inspections. Whatever we have to do to get out in front of these realtors or investment companies has been a real good avenue, for relationship building for TC Backer that contributes. Like we made it through 2008 because of CR Property Group. We rode on their coattails and the people that we were introduced to from those relationships. So first and foremost, I think you need to figure out, like, is there networking that you can do in your local area, right? Join your local builders association. I've been on the association. I actually sit on the board. Home shows. Home shows are huge. If you're not doing home shows in your local area and going live while you're there, I don't care if it's from your cell phone. Our first home show, I had an iPhone 8. I was reaching more people outside the home show than were coming in the doors, but letting them know that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that's another. So you're setting appointments, you're creating more touch points, you're creating your brand, and you're getting out in front of the general public.
Yeah.
First and foremost. So then when they see your truck because they saw you at the home show, or when they see your yard sign, now you're no longer a stranger. You are building trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because trust and transparency and being honest is probably your biggest form of marketing and branding that you could possibly do, no matter what the situation is. You always do the next right thing, and that will carry you for decades.
I love that. And something I've always just found interesting about you is that even though you're growing a lot, even though that you've, created a business that's pretty substantial, that you're a pretty humble guy. And it's kind of weird to have somebody say that to you because it feels weird or whatever, but I appreciate it. And I'm taking it as an example and I want to be more like you. How do you stay humble? And I plan, hey, Ty, I plan to be fucking massively successful. But I want to keep on getting around people like you. And I don't ever want to get a weird ego about it. So how do you stay humble as a pretty large business owner? And we were saying this before the call, but like, how people watching this will understand. Your people laugh at your jokes when they're not funny. Have you noticed that? Sometimes people won't call you on your shit because you're paying a lot of people, right? You have a bunch of people on your payroll, and sometimes they're not. It's not you could see. The truth is we have to kind of figure out how to moderate ourselves, even though the people around us are not going to react to us like we're just a friend.
Yeah. No, and that's a great question, because it's so easy to get complacent and entirely too comfortable and show your ass, right? I've done that too many times, especially early on in business. And I think the biggest thing that sticks with me on a daily basis, right, is don't forget where you come from, Bob. Okay, if you've been where I've been, if you have walked my shoes and have put yourself in situations that I've put myself in, you wouldn't be running around showing how or what color your socks are, right? Trying to keep this clean, the size of your socks, right?
Yeah.
If you have been where I have been, and I feel like that I've been given a second chance and that I'm on borrowed time. Like, how you get those phone calls to extend your warranty? Well, I've been given an extended warranty. And I honestly feel like there's a reason why I've been chosen to continue to be here and breathe air. And I don't want to take that for granted. Not for 1 second, not for 1 day do I want to take that for granted. So why would I turn around and spit in his face? And I say his face and act like that I did this when I really didn't do anything other than just show up every day and be consistent, right? And I've learned through lots of trials, a lot of errors, a lot of failures. I can count, I don't know how many failures. I have 10x the failures, whether it be my behavior, financial mistakes, whatever it might be that you want to categorize up into failures, then I do victories and wins. And that's why I stack small wins. I open my eyes, win number one. I put my feet on the floor, win number two, right? I read some books before I leave. I stack those wins before I walk out the door. I arm myself so I don't go out there and act like a raving, arrogant asshole
Yeah.
to the general public who's been so good to me, right?
Yeah.
Because they, whether they know it or not, have given me a second chance, another opportunity to run a very successful business within this town at some point, maybe someday across the country,
Yeah.
right? And what's cool about this is that if I can do this, anybody can do this. You just got to have the grit, the tenacity, keep your ego in check. And ego is an acronym for edging God out. The moment I start edging God out is when that ego starts to take over. But if I can keep right sized and don't forget where I come from, it's really easy to remain humble.
I have a question for you. So I like rewarding myself as a business owner. I also don't want to be one of those guys. You know, you see the cautionary tales in the roofing industry and in any industry really, but like roofing industry is kind of known for exorbitant, like excess style, like just big flashy stuff. And then you see somebody who's like struggling financially and you're like, well, I could have empathy for you, but you really look like you've been spending a lot of money, you know, for fun. And but like, where's the balance there? Like, how can we enjoy our wins? Let's say if you knocked your revenue goal out of the park this past year, how do you enjoy a win and kind of incentivize your executive team or something like that and do something fun? And then how do you not make that like a burden, a financial burden on the company, I guess. And I don't know, maybe you don't like, I mean, I have
That's
a, like,
a great question.
you spend money on like fishing or something like that, right? Like you have like a pretty cool boat
Yeah.
rig and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like, that's your thing.
Yeah.
Like, how do you find a balance between like living it up and then like not being ridiculous to like hurt your company?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That is a great question. I always look at it like this, Tim. How is it going to improve the quality of my life so I can be a better human, a better father, a better husband, a better business owner, a better leader, right? How is that going to benefit this? Like, let's say you need to buy a new house, or not need to buy a new house, but the house that you currently live in right now, okay, is a bit small. It's cut up, doesn't have much of a yard. You know, people can't come over to visit. You can't host parties. When you go home, you're just kind of like, you know, I'm sick and tired of this place, man. I just don't have my chi. When I walk in here, it's not very zenful. You know, I can't even put a pool in the backyard because it's so small, or I'll never get the equity out of it that, you know, if I add an addition on the back. So, and I'm using this as a true example of the torment that Jan and I put ourselves through when we bought the house that we live in 4 years ago. I looked at it as if I wanted a house that wasn't going to make me house broke, right? Something that we could afford, because we lived very humbly. We lived in the same place right on Main Street in Dover, a 1,300 square foot home up to 4 years ago, right? And many people would come over and visit me and be like, yo, what the fuck you live in here for? And literally people would ask me, why do we live there? It was paid for. It was our house. We remodeled it several years before Jan and I. It was our first house together. We remodeled it. I loved it, but we kind of outgrew it. We got more grandchildren. We were never able to host Thanksgiving there, Christmas, you know, birthday parties, because it was so small and so cramped. So we went house hunting. And when we looked at it, we found this house, had a nice big backyard. We could put a fence up to let the dogs run free. The quality of the living would improve because we could leave them out more and run around freely in the yard. We could put in the backyard, we could put a pool in, so then I could unwind The grandchildren had a place to come and play. Our children, you know, would have a place for their friends to come over and play, which in the long run would make my heart happy, make me feel more rejuvenated when I walked in the door. And we kind of created our own oasis where I almost not necessarily feel like when I go home every night that I'm on vacation, but it gives me that sense of like relief from the day when I walk in my home. So to make the decision, can we afford it? That was easy to do. Hey, can we afford an extra $200 a month? Sure. We could definitely afford that. It's not going to put us in a bad spot. It's not going to put the business in a bad spot. It needs a little bit of work, but over time we can do it and turn it into our oasis, which it is today. Okay, which in turn has improved the quality of my life, where I rest better. My family has a place to congregate, right? Which then, you know, because at the end of the day, isn't it about family? Right? Our family, it starts there. We're able to provide for our family better. It's a place for them to congregate. And at the end of the day, I rest better there. I sleep better there. I have peace there. So then when I leave my house in the morning, after I armor up to go out and kick adversity in the face, right? It's because I bought this house. I'm able to go out here and do that. And I know when I go out here, where I'm going to go and put my head on the pillow is my happy place. Okay. Now, fishing boat. Always wanted to do it. Always wanted to do saltwater fishing, have saltwater fish for about 15 years. Now, this was an investment, and I say that because we had a camper that I had sold for 4 times more than what I purchased it for, was able to buy a house with in our very first boat, okay, and still had equity. Bought our first boat, traded that in, was able to basically pay for the boat itself, still have the house down there today, 10, 12 years later. Still have the home down there. Each boat that I've bought, I had so much equity from the first boat, right? So that doesn't mean you can't own a boat, but be smart about it. I've never had a boat payment. I've never had a house payment down at the beach because of the first investment, the first quality of life investment, the camper, right? The camper, why do you need a camper? Well, because I got to get away. I need to unplug. I need to recharge so I can come back here and conquer the world. Because high performing people like you and I, we need a place where we can go so we can level up, catch up on our reading, catch up on emails, spend time, most importantly, with our family, and be emotionally present with our family without the distractions, right? Because if the quality of our home life improves, the quality of our professional life is going to improve by default.
I love that.
Yeah,
I agree.
So when you look at it, when you're looking to, I mean, Louis Vuittons and fast cars and all that bullshit, I'm not, did I buy Jana Louis Vuitton when we were over in Dubai? Yeah, I did. Why? We were in Dubai. Why? Because I could.
Hey, by the way, so I do have to wrap up here shortly, if it's okay, Ty.
Yeah.
When are you going to Dubai again? I'm trying to go to Dubai sometime in the next. I put it as one of my. I put it as one of my soft goals. Like I've got real goals, and then I've got some kind of silly ones. And one of my silly ones in 2024 is to go to Dubai. So just saying, you know, if you're thinking about it later this year or something, maybe maybe bring your boy along. Let's do some video adventures or something. I don't know. I'm down. I'm trying to figure out how to get over there. We'll figure it out.
If you truly believe in what you're doing and you want to be the best version of yourself and you want to build a great organization, there's no other place to do that besides the Roofing Academy.
But where do you think this is going, by the way, percentage wise? I know we're not talking specific numbers. I know you guys are on the larger side for a lot of roofing companies. And I know you got a lot of other parts of the business. Are you trying to go 4x from where you are percentage wise? Where are you trying to go from here? Where's the vision?
So we went through our correction year. you know, with inflation, where we are experiencing that with our labor and our materials. So right now, this past year, we actually did less in revenue, but our net profit was much more. So again, a part of the correction year. So where we didn't focus so much on the amount of revenue as much as we did as the bottom line. So now I feel like we can probably at each location, we're currently now, we have 4 locations. Now we have 2 down in South Carolina, 1 in Greenville, 1 in Hilton Head, 1 in Delaware, and then 1 here in the great state of Pennsylvania. So I have a figure on each one of them. So it's not quite like a 10x, but we are going to do significantly more than what we did in 2023. So percentage wise, I would say it's roughly going to be probably right somewhere between 25 to 35% more in revenue.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Ty, could you give a little wrap
Yeah,
up?
this year is going to be huge.
Any call to action that you have for us at the end of this?
Call to action, like a nugget?
Yeah, or just like if you want to just say your guys.com or anything else that you would love people to do here at the end.
I got a little nugget that I thought about the other day. How about I share that?
Yes, sir.
With it being a new year, 2024 is upon us, and I think a lot of people focus more on, you know, adding things to their life and improvements and all of these new little things. I think we need to focus a little more, at least for myself personally, on what can I remove to add more, right? Like, so if I'm removing some things, whether it be toxic people, mindless scrolling, whatever the case might be, it could be personally, it could be professionally. Let's think more, focus more on what we can remove today in our lives to become better parents, better leaders, a better company, a better motivator. What can I do to be a better human being? What can I remove from my life to be a better human being today, instead of adding all the shit that I think people think that they need to add to their life moving into a new year?
Good word. I'm going to receive that. And I appreciate you being on today, brother. I'm always enjoying chatting with you, but it was really nice to be the interviewer here. Excuse me, that we need to wrap up. Thank you everyone for watching and or listening. Podcast is put on by hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social. And Ty, so excited for you guys this year. I'm excited to watch what you're up to. I'm going to keep on watching you as a leader. No pressure. I want to learn from you. I really, really, really do appreciate your attitude and your humility, even though you're growing a big company. And I want to learn from that. Thank you everyone for watching.